Hello world of YouTube and welcome to my Linkin Park discography review update. In this video I'm going to be reviewing the new album, Living Things, but if you haven't seen my Linkin Park discography review, click the door fedora. It's Magical Fedora. It takes you to magical places. And in that part, which is the whole review, the whole video, I cover the albums Hybrid Theory, Meteora, the remix album Reanimation, the EP Collision Course, Minutes to Midnight, and 1,000 Suns. So they're all covered in that video. And this one, like I said, Living Things, came out this week. And before I went into this album, I kind of had a few varied thoughts going through my head, especially even before hearing Burn It Down. Because before Burn It Down, they were saying, like, oh, we're going back to some familiar places in interviews. And I thought, you know, oh, this is going to sound like old Linkin Park. That's awesome. I love old Linkin Park. So I'm excited to hear this again. Then Burn It Down came out, and even on the iTunes pre-order for the thing, it said, Linkin Park are back to their roots. They're back to that new metal sound that you know and love. And I was like, awesome! And then I got Burn It Down, and I listened to it, and I was like, what? And I'll talk about, specifically about the song elements later, but I mean, just hearing that song, I was like, what? That song had to grow on me, because it's just, it wasn't terrible, but it was just not what I was expecting. So, it was kind of like I was lied to. And then on some interviews, like, past that, they were like, they clarified their statements. They said, you know, like oh, we're not gonna completely go back to our old sound. That's preposterous. Why would we go back to that? That's ridiculous. No. You misread what we had said. You misheard what we had said. We had said that we are going to go to elements. We're gonna do elements. We're not gonna do everything like the old albums, but we do have some good instrumentation, and Mike raps more. You love it! You love it when Mr. Shinoda spits on the microphone more, don't you? It is glorious! Yeah, that's fireworks outside. That is, what Linkin Park had kind of revoked their statement, saying like, oh, we're gonna go back to the old style and do things our own way, a meshing pot of sorts. So I was like, alright, that's cool. And that is a better reflection of the album. As a whole, it is kind of a melting pot of their 4 albums. More 1,000 Suns and Meteora than the other two, but there are elements of Minutes to Midnight and kind of Hybrid Theory on this album. But you do have a lot more of the electronics from 1,000 Suns mixed in with everything else from the other 3 albums. And I like that. I mean, and this album starts off strong. You got some good electronics, and Mike spits a really good verse that has lyrics leaning towards the old style of Linkin Park. When I heard Lost in the Echo, I was like, alright, cool, this is kind of more of the vibe of what they were saying. You know, it is kind of like, alright, this is old meets new. I like it, it's cool. And the chorus isn't bad, it's a good starting track. And that's kind of a good tone to set for the album, because a majority of the album kind of has this pace to it. There are some moments where it falters, like the wubby electronic sounding tracks like Lies, Greed, and Misery, Skin to Bone, and Until It Breaks, which have more of the dubsteppy sound electronics, which I'm not big on. Now the openings to those tracks, and the openings for all these tracks really are awesome. Like, especially the 3 I had mentioned. The Lies, Greed, and Misery, like, piano opening has a good vibe, and then it just drops into that pseudo-wub, and I was like, it's not overpowered dubstep, like it's not wah 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 wah, but it's enough to where I kind of go, yeah, in terms of liking it in this, just because I have very strong opinions about dubstep. But I mean, overall, it is very well put together electronics, and they don't meander like they did on 1,000 Suns. If you remember my 1,000 Suns review, if you've seen it, they meander a bit in the opening. Like it's a lot of building up to this album, and this one just kind of starts and it keeps going. But it is short. This album is very short. Like the album is paced well, but it's short. Like barely any of the songs crack 3.5 minutes. And even in that time, some of these songs get extremely repetitive. Like on the tracks Castle of Glass and I'll Be Gone, those 2 tracks, and they're next to each other, are just so repetitive. Like, the chorus is rung out so many times on those songs, and it's just no. I had a tough time getting through those tracks, because they're so repetitive and boring and blah, blah, blah. And the instrumental on this album is kind of lackluster, kind of disappointing. Not nearly as good as, like, Sessions or A Cure for the Itch. Cure for the Itch is awesome. And apparently, I don't recall this, I'll have to revisit those albums again, but Minutes had a instrumental. I'm not including in the introduction, the Wait thing. And apparently, 1,000 Suns had an instrumental, excluding the interludes and intro. I have to look into that, but I don't remember there being instrumentals on those albums. But Tinfoil is an instrumental, it's more like an interlude. I wish it was longer. And Victimize is another track I wish was infinitely longer. Victimize is my favorite track in the album, and I don't think that's a surprise to many people, but I really like Victimize. Victimize is awesome. It's got this really heavy instrumentation. Not their heaviest song, I found out, but some really heavy instrumentation. Chester's screaming is great. Mike's verse is the best on the record. He spits just this great verse about, I guess, heartbreak and sadness and all that stuff, but with a really good instrumentation by the band. It even leads to stuff that they've never done before instrumentally, which I was like, yeah, this is awesome. And that's a great song, and I wish it was longer. And they do have other great moments on this record. I like the intro to Castle of Glass. The intro to Castle of Glass, if that was the whole track and it was better written, I would have loved that song. It has a very Meteora feel, even electronically. Like that intro sounds like Meteora chopped and put years later. That opening was awesome, and then it's just kind of a letdown from that point on. But aside from that, there are some other really good points on this album. The instrumentation to In My Remains, there's another track on here that has that same instrumentation. Instrumentation-wise, has Minutes to Midnight, which I still don't like Minutes to Midnight, but I like the instrumentation of the songs. And In My Remains, I guess, kind of has this patriotic feel to it, which also kind of reflects to Minutes to Midnight, because there are a lot of points in Minutes to Midnight where that album feels very patriotic, and that definitely has that vibe. And really, the biggest problem I have with Minutes to Midnight, aside from the weird pacing of the album, I didn't clarify this in my review, but one of the reasons why I'm glad they didn't lean on the electronic side of Minutes to Midnight is because the electronics were bad. The electronics of Minutes were bad, especially on the drum machine in Shadow of the Day. In Shadow of the Day, the electronic section in that song is bad. The drum machine is terrible. It's bad. They could have and have done better, both in the past and current. But I digress. That review's already done. But overall, did I like this album? Nah. I was kind of underwhelmed, to be honest. I liked 1,000 Suns quite a bit, actually. I still do go back to 1,000 Suns every so often. I haven't recently, but I do go back to it every so often. And I was hoping for so much for this release, especially after hearing the alright moments of Burn It Down, which kind of had a campy feel to it. That's one of the reasons why I didn't like it. Like Skin to Bone, Burn It Down, and Castle of Glass all have these kind of campy, campfire feels to them. Like they're kind of overly optimistic. And for them to do that, it's weird. Like it's just weird to hear them do that. It throws me off. Like in Mike's verse on Burn It Down, it's just bland. It's bland, and that is so disappointing to me because he's written some pretty good verses, and the one in Burn It Down is just meh. But aside from the campiness and some of the lubby electronics, this album isn't bad. The electronics that are used that showcase more of the styles of 1,000 Suns and even Meteora are well done. The instrumentation is really well done, and some of the intense moments aren't bad. Like I said, they do a really good job of highlighting Chester's intensity in these less depressing songs. And really, I kind of wish it was longer. The final track was kind of weak, but Linkin Park doesn't close an album out well to me. Like, I've never really I've kind of been underwhelmed with all of the outro, the final songs to all of their albums. They're just kind of meh. Like, The Messenger did a good job of kind of breaking up the pacing of the album, the fact that it was soft, but it was underwhelming. It was underwhelming, to say the least, the final track. And really, some good points of this, some scattered points throughout the album. Do I recommend it? Kind of. Like, I like it a little bit more than Minutes, but I place it above Minutes, but below everything else. This album could have been better to me, but it does have some shining moments, and it does have some potential for their future. It does show some good potential. Will I be revisiting it? I don't really know. That'll all tell as the year goes on, but as of right now, and really in comparison to the rest of the material, it's kind of underwhelming. I was hoping for much more from these guys. But that's my review of it. Favorite song is Victimized. That song is great. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much all I gotta say. Again, if you have missed part 1, I'm gonna take away the album art, which, I told you, upgrading my stuff, but part 1, right there, door for Dora. That's pretty much it. I'm gonna go now. I've been Viralrak. You guys have good days, lessons, situations, and I'll see you another day. Mario video should be up after this one, because I'm still working on it. I'm halfway done, though, which is cool.